What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about what's happening with the market going into next week and what the charts are suggesting. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY and uninvested cash. The conference in just about 5 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So, as far as the market's going, we have this head and shoulders like structure that's developing on SPY right now. Today, we saw a lot of changes in the broader markets. We saw the bonds market pressuring the markets, causing the sell off. There was also other factors such as potential like tax harvesting and some uncertainties about the next year and what's happening with the politics and tariffs. There's been some talk about that today. I'm not going to go over the full details, but I just want to say that the market is now showing signs that it wants to reverse, and there could be a risk of a lot more downside if we lose some key levels. So I'll talk about what those levels are and how the charts are looking in just a couple of minutes. I first want to talk about this. Just know that the whole market came down. We saw big tech selling off quite a bit. We saw Nvda, Tesla, Aapl, and the list goes on with all these tickers coming back down. And that's what dragged a lot of these like other stocks down from like the NASDAQ, the QQQ, the S&P 500, and the list goes on. So that's why the market saw this sell-off. Going into next week, just know that on Monday, it's going to be December 30th. We have the Chicago PMI coming out in the morning. For Tuesday, we have very minor data coming out, just a couple of house prices, and then nothing else that's too crazy. Wednesday is going to be January 1st, the new year, which means that the stock market is going to be closed. For Thursday, we're going to be looking for initial jobless claims and some very, very minor manufacturing numbers. And then finally, we have Friday, which is going to be our ISM manufacturing, PMI, employment, and new orders reports. Those are going to be very important, so expect a lot of volatility on Friday for next week. But that's pretty much it for the market for now. That's what we're seeing. There's going to be like more quiet data to start things off, but things become more intense towards the end of the week. And then in the middle of the week, we have New Year's, so the market's going to be closed again. Also know that for earnings, there's nothing significant coming out. There's nothing at all coming out for next week. It's going to be a very quiet period because of the new year. But then things get serious by the later weeks, so just keep that in mind. And then last but not least, the fear and greed index is currently at fear. That's making up the majority of sentiments. Momentum is currently at fear. It's dipping just a little bit more, so we're starting to see that slowing down. The put to call option ratio started dipping as we start to see the market bouncing, but as a result of people closing their shorts and going long again, the market got a rug pull once again. So it tricked a lot of investors. Right, people were going long in the market as the market was dumping. Then, as the market started to get bought back up, as soon as people started buying shorts, the market got bought back up, and then as people started to close those shorts, we start to see another sell-off. So pretty crazy stuff. This has been the opposite of what the market's been doing. So you guys can see the manipulation because of the options chain that's panning out. And then we have the VIX. This is now at neutral. The VIX is trying to bounce, but it's going to be testing resistance. So what do I see from this point on? Honestly, guys, we're not looking that great when you look at the setups, at least for bulls. There's still that head and shoulders, and there's going to be a risk of us making a potential lower high. So the trend was making higher highs and higher lows. Right here's the epitome of this as we're making higher highs and higher lows. Then we had a high here that came down. This was our lower high that was made. We attempted to push back up to get back up to these highs, but we failed so far. We got a rejection. So if we confirm that we're going to be rejecting and losing our 591 area, I do expect a lot more downside. And this could be a sign that the market's going to reverse and make lower highs and lower lows. But if we manage to break past this resistance around 600, there's going to be potential for us to try to break out higher. What do I think is going to happen? My view is this. I think that the head and shoulders is looking more prevalent, and there's going to be a lot of uncertainty going into next year with the Fed and such, which is why the market may see some selling. Now this is looking like a head and shoulders, so it looks a little bit weaker than yesterday. So I wouldn't be surprised if we attempt a rebound early next week to retest our 20 EMA. So we could be looking for 595, if not 598. It is possible we get back up there, but if we can't get back up the high we made from from like Thursday, there's a good chance that the move is not going to last, and this might just make a lower high than make a dip back down towards 591. So just keep that in mind. There's a very, very good chance this is a head and shoulders and we're about to see some kind of rejection. So look for a rebound attempt, then a rejection back down to 591. If that fails, we're going to be looking for a dip back down towards 588 or below. I also want to call out the possibility that this could be like a left shoulder here. This could be a head, and then we could be forming like a right shoulder before it starts to dip. So the head and shoulders looks very probable, especially with this imbalance to fill down here. And I think that there's going to be a rebound attempts towards these EMAs between 596.8 and 598. And then we could be looking for rejections after that. So please keep that in mind. For ES, we're making lower highs right now. We're looking at this resistance around 60.50. And if we end up losing support at 6,000, we're looking for a dump back down towards 59.80. So I think this might attempt to rebound for the 50-60 or the 60-50 area, excuse me. But the problem is ES is looking weaker than SPY, and there's a good chance that it's not going to last. So this could be another head and shoulders that's about to pan out. It also shows very nicely on the daily. So look for a retest of potentially 60.50. Then we could reject and make a move back down. I think the move is just getting started, as we could be forming like a left shoulder here ahead, maybe like a right shoulder to just continue this dump. For Nvda, it's the same thing. This looks like a weak structure. Now we're forming another peak. Notice that it was trying to rebound, and we have a tendency of doing this. We form these peaks and reject, form a peak and reject, peak and reject, peak and reject. And then we also tend to have like a head and shoulders now forming on Nvda. So I was talking about that in my earlier videos. We were watching to see if this inverse head and shoulders would pan out first before anything else. But we came just short of our like 144 targets. So now it's rejecting. So because of this rejection, I just want to call out the possibility that this could be forming kind of like a inverse cup and then like a handle before it starts to come back down. I do see a risk of us slowing down as we approach the new year. Bitcoin looks weaker now. I think the same thing is going on with this. Might rebound for 95,000, but then this could reject and start dipping for 92,000. So please keep that in mind, everyone. For other tickers out there like Tesla, Tesla has a double top like structure. Could be a rebound as soon as Monday for an attempt to get back up towards the 440 area. I do anticipate that as we're going to try to hold our 50 EMA, but then we're making lower highs here. So we could be making a lower high just to reject back down just under the 440 zone, and then we could start dipping lower. If we lose 415, we're looking for a bigger dump. Look for a rebound and a rejection as the most likely possibility. We'll have to see what happens after that. So please keep that in mind, guys. There could be a rebound attempt only to get a rejection. Then we'll have to see what happens after that. I do see a risk of that potentially, this little rebound just to form a rejection, and we'll see what goes on at least after that. For NQ, this could attempt to rebound for 21,800 only to reject. I do want to say that we're making lower highs right now. So I think it's going to try to push for 21,800 early next week, maybe get a little bit above that. But if we can surpass the highs up here, there's a chance we're going to make a lower high and start dumping. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see. The QQQ is also making lower highs. We could attempt to rebound for 525. If we hit this, we could reject it and start dipping back down for about 518. So I see a risk of that. For Aapl, same thing. This is looking a little bit weaker, especially as you have this bearish looking daily or 4-hour and daily candlestick. So we could be making a lower high here, then reject and start dipping back down to about 253, then 251.8. So be careful, guys. There's going to be a risk of that downside move. For Palantir, not looking that great. Now, there is the possibility of this forming like a cup and handle, but I don't think that the handle would be done yet if that were to be the case. And if anything, it does look like it's going to be revisiting like 76.9 to 76 flat. Might be a small dip before it tries to rebound, so just keep that in mind. I think the IWM Russell 2000 could be retesting 223, but if it does not hold above that, we could make a lower high, then start dipping lower towards 220 or below, so just keep that in mind. For coin, we're looking a bit more bearish right here, just like Bitcoin. Might retest 270, then reject. As we're making lower highs, so there's going to be a risk of us coming back down to 257, then eventually 250. Amazon's looking weaker. We're making lower highs here. This also looks like a more distributive structure. However, we haven't officially broken support, so it might retest 225 before it comes back down to 220. When you look at the daily, for example, on Amazon has this big gap down here to fill. There's a lot of gaps here, so it makes me a little bit concerned that if we lose 222 and 220, that we might be coming down to fill this gap towards 213. So please keep that in mind, guys. There's that risk of downside. Same thing with Meta. We have these big gaps on the daily. It might rebound a bit going into next week for the 605 or so, but then if we can't hold above that, there's still that risk of downside. It's technically just range bound between 604 and then around 588. It may push, then dip back down, just continue to trade sideways, but there's that risk of downside. Microsoft looks a little bit more bearish as we're losing our 200 EMA at 431. If that fails and we can't get back above that, there's going to be a risk of us dumping back down towards this imbalance down here. So look for an attempt to get back up to the low 430s, 431 to 433, and then we could reject off that and start dipping lower. So please keep that in mind. For Google, we have a left shoulder, we have a head and a right shoulder forming. If we lose 192, we're looking for a dump back down towards 188 as the most likely possibility. There is still that head and shoulders, but I think we're going to see a small rebound on Monday, and we'll see if we get a rejection or not off our 20 EMA, so just keep that in mind. For other factors, we have the VIX. It's still looking bullish. It might dip a little bit as the market attempts to rebound, but then it could bounce later on. I think the VIX is just getting started. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. So please have a great rest of your day. As far as the market goes, look for a rebound early next week, but then there is that risk of downside afterwards. Okay, further downside because we still have these very, very weak looking patterns. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. That's it for this video. I'm going to make this one nice, short, sweet, and simple because of the weekend. I'll hopefully be back tomorrow for another update. Until then, please have a good rest of your day and peace out.